What if I told you that being a psychopath isn't exactly what the movies made you think it is? Like, it's not always about a killer with a chainsaw in a horror flick. Real psychopathy is way more complex, and surprisingly, it shows up inside the brain, literally. So here's the tea. Scientists have been scanning brains, and they've noticed some structural differences in people who score high on psychopathy tests. We're talking real brain data, not vibes, not astrology. MRI scans, baby. Before we jump to conclusions, let's clear up a huge misconception. Psychopath is not a clinical diagnosis. It's not like a doctor will be like, yo, you got stage 3 psychopath. Instead, it's a collection of traits like impulsivity, charm, manipulativeness, lack of empathy, and antisocial behavior. And not all psychopaths are evil masterminds. Some are just cold coworkers who ghost you after borrowing your charger. Rude. But jokes aside, people with high psychopathic traits are statistically more likely to commit violent crimes, reoffend, and cause serious damage to others, emotionally and physically. That's why researchers care so much about understanding what's going on under the hood. Now here comes the science. A team from the US and Germany studied 39 male participants with high psychopathy scores. They used the Psychopathy Checklist Revised, also known as PCL-R. Sounds like a robot name, but it's basically a personality test with 20 items. These guys got scanned with MRs and then compared to a control group. And guess what they found? Some parts of the brain, like the basal ganglia and thalamus, were smaller in the psychopathic group. Quick neuro crash course. The basal ganglia controls things like movement and emotion. The thalamus is like the brain's receptionist, directing traffic between your senses and your thinking. When those areas are smaller, it might explain poor emotional regulation and impulsive decisions. There were also differences in the insular cortex, the part that helps us feel empathy and interpret social cues. Basically, the emotional Wi-Fi signal in the brain is a bit weak in those with higher psychopathy scores. Oh, and don't forget the anterior cingulate. That part is involved in moral judgment. If that's underdeveloped, it's not hard to see why someone might not feel guilt the same way most people do. All this builds a picture. The brains of people high in psychopathy might be wired differently. They might struggle with emotional processing, empathy, and impulse control, not just because they're bad, but because their brain is structured in a unique way. Now, you might be wondering, are people born this way? Is it all genetics, or do environmental factors like trauma, abuse, or upbringing play a role? The short answer is, we don't fully know yet. This study was small, just 39 dudes. That's barely enough to fill a college lecture hall. Plus, it didn't fully account for drug use history, which could mess with brain structure too. But still, these findings are wild. They suggest we need better, science-based ways to identify and possibly treat people with psychopathic traits. It's not just about locking people up. It's about rehabilitation, about understanding the why, not just punishing the what. Imagine a world where we can intervene early, like before someone ruins lives. If we understand the neural patterns, maybe we can develop therapies that help build better emotional regulation or moral reasoning. And yeah, we know there's always that nature versus nurture debate, but science is slowly bridging that gap. Understanding structure means we can eventually influence function. Now, I'm not saying we'll have a pill that fixes psychopathy tomorrow, but imagine what that could mean for criminal justice, education, even parenting. Recognizing patterns early could change the game. So next time you hear the word psychopath, don't just think of Netflix villains. Think of the brain. Think of empathy. Think of how science is giving us a roadmap to something bigger. Not just labeling people, but helping them. If you believe in creating content that educates, challenges stereotypes, and spreads awareness about mental health and neuroscience. Consider supporting this channel. Every bit helps us research deeper, create better videos, and keep the conversation going.